Who's going for coffee? Who's going for coffee? So no one's going for coffee. Who's going for coffee?
All right, welcome back, everybody. So who's going for coffee? So today I have Matt McElduff with us today. Matt McElduff, I'm going to come out and announce to everybody that just got elected day secretary for Local 1. So congratulations, brother.
Yeah. Thank you, Rich.
I'm
looking forward.
It's an awesome accomplishment. You know, Local 1 just had an election every 3 years. They do an election for their officers, right? We got 16 executive board members, plus our correspondent position that doesn't have to, but, you know, we include them in there. And you ran for day secretary and got overwhelmingly elected by the membership. So, again, congratulations, bro.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rich. Yeah, I'm looking forward to stepping into this new role. We have installation of offices tonight, so we'll be getting sworn in, you know, the whole executive board. So
yeah, it's exciting times, and we're going to talk about that. But, you know, everybody that we have on, I'd like to talk about how they came into this trade. So why don't you just talk a little bit about, you know, what got you here to Local 1?
All right. Yeah, a family friend got me into the business. You know, he mentioned to me probably back in 2002, early 2002, if I'd be interested in, you know, becoming an elevator mechanic. And I said, sure, yeah, I'd be interested in it. You know, I heard the trade before, so I knew it was a good job. And and I started a few months later. I started with Fuji Tech as an apprentice in April 8th, 2002. You know,
2002.
Yeah. Yeah, so my first day on the job, I remember meeting a bunch of guys. We were at the Four Seasons Hotel on 58th Street. And I worked with the adjuster that day, Chris Hill. I went around helping him, you know, and just carrying his tools. And I didn't know what the heck was going on.
You didn't know what was going on?
Yeah.
So what were you doing prior to? What was your gig prior to?
Prior to that, actually, I was driving a truck for a few months before that, delivering like Poland Springs water. Then I had a couple other jobs working for contractors and doing stuff like that, home improvements.
So
like that.
So for you, getting into the trades really wasn't something that you were seeking to do on your own. You were steered this way.
You know what? I talk about this often. Like growing up in my neighborhood in Staten Island, everybody in the neighborhood, my father, my neighbors, my uncles, the guy in the bartender, the guy in the pizzeria, the guy in the candy store, everybody always talked about good jobs. They really did. You know, they talked about telling us, go get the chief every week, look at what civil service exams are coming out, look at what union applications are coming out. They were talking about plumbers union, electricians union. You might have to go stand online, wait 2 weeks to get an application for the union. You know, they never really talked about Local 1. But I remember hearing them talk about Otis Elevator. So that's Local 1, you know. Say, oh, that guy worked for Otis Elevator, and it's a really good job, you know. So I knew that this was a good job, even as a young man. I really did, you know. Yeah. So when I got this opportunity, I knew I had a good job, you know. So
listen, most people when they talk about trying to get a job in the trades, they very rarely ever mention us because we're like, you know, we're like the best kept secret in the building trades.
It is.
Know, most people know the trades that they know, the trades they see on TV, the trade, you know, they know the plumbers, they know the electricians and all them, but the elevator constructors, they don't even realize a lot of times that we are a trade.
Yeah.
You know, and for a lot of our members back in the day, you know, prior to apprenticeship, you know, was who you knew. You know, now you came in, you know, after apprenticeship and, you know, changed the game, you know, with how the trades can hire. Right now it's recruitments and direct entry and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I'm always interested. I think a lot of people are interested in the path that guys take. You know, for me, you know, I met my wife at a bar, and her father was a prominent member here.
Okay.
And that's how I got here. I was working in a bank. I had no visions of working in trades. You know, I was going to be a baseball player and a writer.
Gotcha.
You know, and then I got hurt in college, and I'm like, I don't know. And I got a job at a bank, and, you know, one great night I meet my wife, and, you know, your whole life changes. So, you know, for a lot of people, it's that. It's the neighbor. It's,
sure,
you know, somebody kind of steering you this way. So you come on the job, you don't know what the hell's going on, right? Like you're like, what's this that I'm getting myself into?
I didn't know what was going on. I remember looking at the controllers, the Fuji controller, all these little ice cube relays, and I was like, wow. And this guy Chris was explaining to me, and I said, wow, I'll never be able to. This is a lot. This is a lot to take.
And you're probably watching him like treat it like it's sticks and stones, real simple. How does he possibly remember what everything does, right? But it just takes time and practice, and you wind up getting it. So you become a mechanic, right? And you're a guy that I know that, at an early age in your career here got involved with the union, right? So what was kind of like your first in helping out or getting involved with the local?
I helped out, first getting involved on the picnic committee.
It's a common place for guys to get involved.
I mentioned this recently, a mechanic I was working with, Brian, and he had mentioned to me he was on the picnic committee, and he was going to the picnic committee meeting that night and asked me to join him, so I went with him, and I've been on the picnic committee pretty much ever since then. That was probably back in, I think, around early 2004, somewhere around then. And then...
and you wind up meeting a lot of people that way, right?
Yeah,
Other people that are involved.
Yeah. And I always showed up. I always made union meetings. I tried to go to all the union meetings and kept showing up and used to help Mike Halpin out a lot, with organizing, phone banking for politicians, getting involved in different organizing drives with the building trades. Back then there was something called Build Up New York City. So that was with the New York City building trades, the hotel trades, and 32 BJ, right? They would target certain developers and leverage them to build union.
Right.
And I would the construction portion of it would be union, and then the good jobs afterwards. The maintenance workers, the hotel workers afterwards would also be union on these jobs, and that was the idea behind it. And it was successful. A couple campaigns I worked with them on, it was successful. So definitely, when you experience that, it keeps you going. Keeps your battery charged, and once so you see the power of the union. Union working together. So organized labor.
Right, but you also see that it's just not guys going to work, right? There's a lot of behind the scenes. There's a lot going on that people don't realize, right? What you're doing
There's a lot going on behind the scenes that you don't realize. 100%. We're always working. To try to protect the union, to fight for the union, because there's definitely people out there and organizations fighting. Against unions, against organized labor. They're tremendous and they're out there fighting against labor. They are. So we have to. We definitely need to stay organized and combat that and keep fighting back against that.
Yeah. Listen, if you look back in 40, 50 years when union density was at its highest, right? There's north of 40% of the jobs out there in these big cities were union jobs, and it's kind of, if you look back, it's really when this country was at its greatest, when people are working and it's blue collar, and over the course of time, because of a lot of reasons, it has dwindled, and it continues to dwindle, right? And so we're here trying to do something like this, and there's other things that we're doing and other things other trades are doing to try and get that trend to turn around. A lot of people that we talk to say, it's forget it, it's not going to happen. I'm not one of those believers. I think that it's cyclical, and I think we can, we're starting to see things out there in society where, the comeback of trade schools, the comeback of shop class in the high schools, where people now are starting to look at, especially parents, how costly going to send your kid to college is, are starting to say, hey, wait a second, maybe the trades isn't a bad thing. Maybe it is a good thing. And they do their investigation. They come to these events, these outreach events, and they come to realize, the amount of money that you can make, the benefits. Our benefits are always compared to any industry.
Yeah.
And the retirement benefits. And listen, I truly believe it might be more hope than anything else that we're going to make a comeback.
Yeah, I think, like you just mentioned, the benefits are definitely second to none. Our medical benefits, our annuity, our pension. And talk about making a comeback. Think about the building trades. Go back to the 1800s. That's when most of the trades started organizing, right? You see us 1894. The carpenters were probably a little bit before us, and that followed up like an industrial revolution, right? Mid 1800s. To the United States, we went from an agricultural economy to a manufactured economy. So people started building, moving to the cities, moving to more dense areas, and the building trades started organizing. And I kind of feel like that's going on right now as far as like another industrial revolution, right? We're hearing about different energy, clean energy, AI, automation, all this stuff. These chip factories, these chip plants, and energy storage, and all this type of stuff. So I think right now is a really good opportunity for the trades to organize and grow and get stronger.
Oh, they gotta capitalize it. They gotta recognize the opportunity that might be staring them in the face for a short period of time, and be able to do the right thing to try and, get that comeback coming.
Yeah, I think the leadership definitely does. We go on these conferences, we hear about it down in NAB too, and the building trade and stuff. So I think we definitely realize the opportunities there, as far as the leadership goes. So
Listen, we have to keep this thing going because I'm retiring soon, but you got a little bit more time to go. It's these young guys that are going to pay, our pensions moving forward. And you think about the young guys that are going to be working, putting into the plan the hours to pay my pension. You think about who's going to pay that kid's pension. He's 2 years old right now, right? So we got to keep this thing going for a long time, right? And if we can get this to turn around and flourish, like it, listen, we've hung on and have been doing well, but we've seen a lot of trades taken on the chin over the years, and we got to collectively, we're in this thing together with all the trades. It's not just us, and we got to collaborate with everybody.
Sure, I agree 100%. We have to definitely work together, stick together in the trades, the building trades, and support each other, protect each other. So we're in a good position with our trade. It's tough. Like you're just not gonna show up on a job and start building an elevator. It's not like hanging out. We learn how to work safe. We're trained on how to work safe. And just talk about like the topic's not really safety, but just to mention safety. That's the most important thing we do every single day on the job is work safe.
You can't say it enough.
Yeah, I always think about it, and I know you mentioned it, like in talking with John Hook, the Focus 4, that's what when I was on the examining board for years, I would always mention that, watch out for your falls, electrical hazards.
Caught between,
and struck by, and try to eliminate those hazards.
And when you think about it, there's, you can think of scenarios in this trade where, at least 3, maybe all 4 of those conditions are present at a single moment.
Yeah.
Yet you're working in a confined space with electricity, or so it is a dangerous trade. But like I spoke to with John, a lot of the trades are dangerous, but we have complete control over our surroundings. What's going on? Tie off, wear a hat, your shoes, your glasses. There should rarely be injuries. There really shouldn't, right? If we're doing the right thing, if we're wearing our PPE, we're following the procedures. And, I cringe sometimes when you see these accidents that happen. You're watching the news at night and something happened, and you look and you think, that's a situation where there probably isn't a safety policy, or there is no, in the non-union sector where there's, it's the Wild West, and these guys are swinging in hatches or, out on open steel, and they don't have, safety program. And you're like, oh my God, man, I wish, we could just be all under one umbrella and everybody gets that, that all important training. But, a handful of years ago, I don't know how many years, you could probably tell me, you get appointed organizer for Local 1.
Yeah.
Right? Which is an interesting position, right? I look at how that's perceived, not only here in this local, but around the country. And I think there's people out there that think that it's a waste of time. I'm sure you've heard it.
Sure.
And then there's people that think it's the most critical thing that we do, right? So you think about those two opposite ends of the rainbow talking about this position of organizing, right? Some people think, it's a waste, because all they see is, are you organizing a big shop or you're not? That's it. It's either the home run or it's nothing. And if you didn't do the home run, well, you failed. Where there's a lot of small victories along the way, right?
Sure.
You can go into an organizing campaign or a drive and it doesn't result in what you were hoping that it results in. But it does, there's small victories along the way, right? So talk about some of the things the wins that the rank and file member doesn't really recognize. Well, you didn't organize that shop, you failed. No, we didn't fail, right? So what are some of those little victories that really, when you add them up, they become a big win?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So I started, I was hired as the organizer in September 2022. And I was definitely, I've done a lot of challenging jobs, throughout my career. I worked in the field for 20 years. I worked on some major high-rise construction projects. I was always fascinated about, how the things we could accomplish on the job. And then taking on this role as an organizer has definitely been one of the most challenging jobs I've ever had to do. It really is, and there really aren't always those big visible wins you're talking about, like organizing, a big non-union shop. But there definitely are some wins, along the way, and we're definitely fighting that battle every single day. One thing we try to do, we definitely make data-driven decisions. We utilize the work preservation grants, the IAP grant, that's the industry advancement program, that's for service work, and also the CAMP grant, that's for construction modernization work. So we go around training our companies, our signatory companies, on how to use those grants, sometimes, and bring that information to them. And we've been able to take a lot of units using those IAP grants. I think we took over 5,000 units over the last, several years. So 5,000 units, that's a pretty sizable company,
Sure
if you
is.
put it all together.
Right.
They're not all from the same company, but they're from that non-union market, right? So that's growing our market share. And at the same time, myself, Brian Hauser, he's unbelievable, the work he has and the work he does and the passion he has for organizing. It really is. It's unbelievable the job he's doing out there. And, it was a great experience working with him, and even my role as a day secretary moving forward, I think I'll be able to, help support organizing, in that role,
Sure.
and we'll all be working together. And, just looking forward to the whole new, the new board, everybody, can be good fresh start.
No, it's gonna be great
exciting stuff. Yeah.
But just getting back a little bit more with the organizing, I think one of the great things that you guys are able to accomplish is trying to raise the floor for the non-union, right?
Sure.
We don't
That's
look
a
at
good
them.
point.
We don't look at them as the worker, right? The kid that's working out there non-union. We do not see him as an enemy.
No, absolutely not.
It's not. And one of our goals is to get that kid more money.
Sure.
Right? Let's all operate on the same level playing field, right? And then let's see who's going to get the work, right? If
Sure.
you're going to pay your guys, half what you're going to pay our guys, and not paying them any benefits, well, yeah, you're gonna get some work just because of that,
Yeah.
right? So if we're able to go in and raise their floor and raise their wages, and maybe now they're going to get some, even if it's lousy, but get some benefits or some retirement benefits. That's a major win for us, though.
Absolutely, yeah, because that makes them, we could then bid against them more competitively, right? They're raising their wages, their benefits, their standards, and that creates, we could be more competitive against the non-union by doing that. And even like you look at these drives, like you mentioned before, if you have a big organizing drive, even if we lost, throughout that process and throughout that organizing drive, that happens, right? The non-union boss might start giving raises to his employee,
Sure.
to the employees, to the workers, and try to entice them to stay with him and this and that, which is all BS, right? He doesn't really care about them,
Right.
They don't have a contract, and he's not obligated to that. But that does raise the bar over there, and it is effective, when we're bidding against them.
The other thing too is when we go on these organizing drives, and they last a long time. This ain't something that's, hey, let's do this, and in a week it's over, right?
No.
You're talking about something that's gonna command a good chunk of your time over a significant period of time, right?
Sure.
So now you're going to go on this drive, and you know, more often than not, they don't end up the way you want them to end up, right? The company don't sign, whatever. But you learn so much along the way, things that you did wrong or things that you could have did better, so that next time, right, like, well, we're not going to make that mistake again, or, you know, this worked or that didn't work. So, and that's just not just here, that's in life in general.
Sure.
Right? You know, so, you know, when you fail or when you don't accomplish what you set out to, you know, don't look at it, and we don't look at it as we're a bunch of failures. No, we just didn't, you know, we're winners. We learned what doesn't work, and we're going to fix it moving forward and be that much more effective moving forward, right? To where
Absolutely.
our organizing drives and what we're doing out there organizing. And listen, it ain't just organizing drives, right? We just finally, a couple of years ago, was able to get licensing,
Sure.
right? So that was a big part of what you guys were doing as organizers. We're probably front and center, along with Mike Halpin, who was a longtime organizer here,
Yeah.
to get licensing.
I was definitely showed up with that. I wouldn't say I was front and center for that, you know, but I did, you know, try to get involved and help out with that along the way. That was before I got on.
That was before you get in turn, but my point is that the
no,
organizers were front and center.
organizers 100%, you
Yes.
know, were front and center, 100%.
Yeah.
That was the organizers back then, yeah.
Right.
Yes, they got that. And, you know, as an organization, like that's one of, you know, things that we should really, in my opinion, we should constantly always be working on, you know, protecting that legislation,
Yeah.
the licensing in New York and New Jersey, you know, contract administration and organizing. Like those are the three things, you know, and, you know, contract administration, that ties into collective bargaining too every 5 years. And that's, you know, what we should be working on. And talk about, like, you know, you learn from mistakes, you learn from your experiences, I should say. Maybe not even mistakes, experiences, you know. And I think that's something I try to do. And I think as an organization, we all try to do. You know, we see what works, what doesn't work, and we're always trying to get better. You know, just look at what happened. You know, look at what we've done. You know, the board and Lenny and Mike and you know, have done over the past several years. You know, putting Brendan Loftus on, you know, as the EAP, employee assistant or labor assistant professional. John Hook, the safety guy, you know, safety director. It's really, we're making, like, it's tremendous, you know, the work we're doing here for them, and it's all about the members. You know, it really is all about our members, making it, you know, a better place for them, a better environment, better working conditions, and, you know, yeah.
Listen, I think we have to do all those things. We have to be proactive because we're in a climate, you know, that I equate it to like we're in a boat that's got a leak and we're bailing. And if you don't bail, you're going to sink.
Sure.
Right? And if you just bail enough, you stay afloat. But if you really want to get to where you want to go, man, you got to bail your ass off, right? And I think that's kind of like what our mentality here at Local One is. We're going to bail like you've never seen bail before, right? So we're creating these, like you said, Brendan Loftus with member assistants, with John, with safety director. Listen, you don't have to say 50 years ago we didn't have, 5 years ago, 10 years ago we didn't have this, right? This is proactive, forward thinking.
You know, and it's also about the public, you know, make it safer.
Right.
People don't think about elevators as a huge part of infrastructure, and, you know, they have to be, they should be safe. Everybody getting on an elevator has the right to be, you know, to get to where they're going safely.
Yeah, and when you talk to people, I'm sure you've done it, I've done it, and when you talk to people that really have no clue of really how it works, right? They walk into their building, they hit the button, they go in, they go up, and that's it. And then you explain to them, say, that contraption that's bringing you up at 1,000 feet per minute up to the 40th floor, would you like that thing to work right and be safe? Or would you like just any Tom, Dick, or Harry to be working on that? We're like, oh, no. And then you explain to him how it works out there, you know, and some of the people that are working on elevators that licensing helped do away with or is doing away with, right? So now you have to be licensed to be able to put your hands on that piece of equipment, right? And every time, I'm telling you right now, every time I go for a friggin' haircut, I sit there and I stare at that wall and there's that guy's license to cut my friggin' hair, right? But up until a few years ago, you didn't need a license to work on probably, the most sophisticated, most dangerous piece of equipment in a building.
Yeah.
Is that elevator.
Yeah, 100%.
It's amazing.
It is, like you just said, the most sophisticated and dangerous piece of equipment. You know, just think about it. Like you said, you get in it, you hit a button, and you go fully automatic to where you got to go.
Yep.
You know, at 1,000 foot per minute, 1,600 foot per minute,
Yeah.
1,800 foot per minute. You know, you're going fast.
You know, and in some spots with clearances with a
With
quarter
a
inch.
half-inch clearance,
Yeah.
quarter-inch clearance, yeah,
Sure.
absolutely, yeah, it's dangerous.
It's dangerous,
If you're
and
not having the right
it's a-
guy working on them.
It's a testament to the talent of the guys that are in this trade.
100%. I think about the guys I worked with over the years, some of the most talented, smartest guys I ever met in my life.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, it's impressive.
It is.
It's impressive what we could do and what we
Yeah.
could do together.
All right, so now, listen, you're getting sworn in, and you're going to be the new day secretary,
Yeah.
right? You're going to follow in some big footsteps. You know, Lee Peron's been there for a long time. Before him, the great Dennis O'Neill, I
Yeah.
think, did a phenomenal job
Sure.
as day secretary. Lee did a great job.
they both
That's
did.
one of those. That's one of those jobs. I think when you look back at all our day secretaries, they were all. You said, oh, he was great. He was great. He was great. That's a tough job, man. That's not a job that you're just going to sit in and mail it in. You got to come in. You're dealing with a lot of issues. You're dealing with guys that are out of work, right? You're dealing with employers, right? Talk just a little bit about the nuts and bolts of that job. You know, what it entails.
But I definitely have some big shoes to fill, like you said, Lee and Dennis O'Neill,
Yeah.
and before Dennis was Gary, and then Joe Nolan when I first started, when
Yeah.
I came down, I started, Joe was there, and you hear about these guys over the years, so I definitely do have some big shoes to fill. But I'm ready for the job. I think I know 100% I'm ready for it, to take this role on. I've been involved for a long time. I was first elected on the executive board, the examining board in 2017. I've been around, and I'm ready for the challenge, 100%.
Yeah.
We do have some unemployment right now. My main goal is to get everybody back to work, and I'm going to work on that, and reach out to the employers and try to get guys hired, and do my best at it,
Yeah. That's like a deal-making gig, right? You got to be able, little Monty Hall, to make deals when,
Sure.
Employers asking you for something, and say, hey, well, I'll take care of it, but you got to take care of, both hands.
Yeah.
The
But there's
great
a-
Jackie Gleason said, both hands, I'm going to screw that whole saying up, right? But they both wash the face, right?
And-
One hand washes the other, they both wash the face.
Yeah, and I'll definitely also, make sure I'm following the contract.
You gotta stay out of jail.
The CBA, so I'll definitely, implement that throughout the, in my position also. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? We're going to have, you're coming in. August is right around the corner. The fall's going to come, and we got a recruiting coming up, right? So that's going to be a fun little time for you,
Sure.
because you're going to be the guy that gets handed that list and have to, follow those important rules and try and, keep yourself out of harm's way, which is easy to do. You just do your job. You just do it the right way.
Yeah.
And, nobody, is ever going to get jammed up. But, it's another spin to that job that only comes around once in a while, and here you are, you're going to be a handful of months on the job, and then you're going to be handed a list.
right in the fire.
Yeah.
That's good though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I like that. That's how I like to learn.
It's going to be
It's good.
It's going to be pretty awesome, and and all the phone calls that you're going to get. How often does your phone ring now with people calling up looking for a job? Like, hey man, can you?
It rings a lot.
Yeah.
And it does ring a lot, but I know it's going to be nonstop.
Yeah.
This job as day secretary really is going to be nonstop.
Yeah.
Even started already. I'm getting a lot more phone calls already, and I didn't even officially take over the position yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it's good when that recruitment comes up, because that's your quick answer a lot. It's like, hey man, there's a recruitment, maybe in December. I think that's what we're going to target, is a December application. That's your answer to them.
Yeah.
Where if we just had a recruitment, now we're maybe 2, 3, 4 years away
Sure, that
from,
might be out of
from
luck
doing
there,
one.
yeah.
But it'll be some interesting times for you when,
Sure.
when that's all done. We hand you that list, and then people are calling, hey, when am I gonna get hired?
Yeah.
Pump the brakes, pal. Nobody, the one thing we do tell everybody, and you'll be part of that whole process, right? We'll invite you down. Neat will handle managing that recruitment, but it's a good opportunity if we're gonna give out 1,500 applications, and now we're gonna test, let's say, 1,000 guys. It's a good opportunity for somebody like yourself to come and address those people, even though they're not in the industry, but to be able to talk about whatever you want to talk about, like what it's like,
Sure.
the hiring process, or But the one thing that I always make sure, I always tell them, hey, don't quit your day job. There is no prediction. It's like the stock market, right? It comes and goes. There's times, we were booming for a long time, and then what happened?
Sure.
In March of 2020, COVID hits and
Yep.
knocks everything out of whack. So it'll be fun times for you. But listen, I know you got the temperament and you got the work ethic to do that job and really, dig in. I know you're going to have great relationships with these employers. You already have relationships with a lot of our employers, and that's really what that gig is all about, is the relationships with the employers and being able to, call these guys up and, say, hey, man, you got to do this for me, or, they are asking you to do something. I know you're going to do a great job.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what takes sometimes to get the guys back to work, And I plan on being responsive to, especially to the members. When they call me, I'm here.
Yeah.
My phone will be on. If I'm on the other line or whatever, I'm on another call, I'll definitely get back to them.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be my number one priority also.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm responsive to the members and their needs,
What's good too is that with these jobs, while they're in our Constitution and bylaws, your responsibility is clearly defined,
Sure.
right? All you got to do is, what's my job all about? We'll just read the Constitution and bylaws, right? For all those jobs. And the same thing with the NEAT job or the EAT job, all these jobs, it's clearly defined what your responsibility is. However, you most certainly are going to put your spin on it.
Sure.
Right? You're going to put your spin. You're going to, say, hey, man, maybe we should be doing something a little different, right? We have the ability to, switch gears and do certain things that is just going to make the whole process easier, better for our membership, better for our guys, right? Because it's all, like you said, it's all about keeping these guys working, and if there's better ways, what worked great for Lee or worked great for Dennis might not work for you.
Sure.
It was the same thing for me when I took over the school. After like a year when I got my feet wet, I'm like, what am I doing that for? Well, that worked for that guy. It ain't working for me. And
Yeah.
I'm going to do something I'm going to do this in a different way with respect to those clearly defined job requirements that you're going to see.
Those
Just look-
parameters. Find your own
Yeah.
way to,
And
to do the
listen,
job.
you're
within
going
the
to do it.
parameters.
Listen, you're a smart guy, and you've always come up with some great, ideas and thoughts. And I know there's going to be a couple little curveballs that you're going to throw in there that's going to just elevate. I think that's what's good about when there's change, and especially when there's young guys coming in. Everything, I think, improves because you're taking something that works, and then you're going to put your spin and you're going to improve this little piece, that little piece, and it's just going to make it that much better. And then when you hand it off to some kid that's probably just getting into the business now, he's going to do the same thing.
Sure.
And over the course of time, and you got this well-oiled machine that's just an unstoppable force that, guys are now fortunate coming into some of these jobs that they can just walk in and take over, where years ago it wasn't the case. Like, you had to figure it out. And there's a lot of things you're going to have to figure out, but you're going to do a good job, bro.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready for it. I'm looking forward to it. So.
Yeah. So, listen, again, congratulations. It's a big accomplishment, having one of those jobs. It's important. You know as well as anybody, that's one of those jobs that usually, when we have our elections, people don't run for.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's one of those jobs like, I don't want to do that job.
Sure, it's a tough job.
It's a tough job.
Yeah.
It's a tough job, and it takes a tough guy to do that job. You're gonna do a great job.
Thank you, Rich.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
No, listen, appreciate you. Membership appreciates you and everything you've done. Like I said, with Brian, with organizing, all your work's been, very well appreciated. Not everybody sees what goes on behind the scenes. You know that. And if you're taking one of these jobs for accolades and pat in the back, hit the road, because that's not what it's all about, right? It's just about doing the things for our membership. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to kind of wrap it up, but you're one of those guys that I know, and all our guys are, but, hey, Matty, can you do me a favor? It's usually I'm in Long Island City or I'm at Melville, Long Island, and all of a sudden I get a phone call and there's a delivery of, 5,000 pounds of steel coming to Perth Amboy. and I call Maddie, it's never like, oh, okay. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Right? You're just one of those guys that will do anything.
Thank you, Rich.
And that's what
I
we
try
need,
to
bro.
be. You know, that's what That's what I think. That's where being a good union member starts. You know,
Yeah.
being good to that guy working next to you. You know,
Yeah.
helping him out. So
That's what it's all about, bro.
yeah.
All right?
All right. Thanks, Rich.
So listen, congratulations. Thank you for coming on. I'm going to have you on again real soon, and then we'll
All
be
right.
talking about, oh, my God, this day secretary's job, I can't do it. Right? But it's good stuff, man. Appreciate it.
Sounds
Proud of you,
good.
and, you know, good luck to you.
All right. Thank you, Rich. I just want to say one more thing. You know,
Yeah,
brothers
go
and
for it.
sisters out there, just work safe every single day.
That's the message.
Yeah.
Work safe, be a brother too, brother.
Yep.
You
All
got it,
right.
bro.
I'll talk to you.
You got it.
Who's going for coffee?